what are some other ideas for creating some freedom and some movement. Today is Thursday, so we are going to do how chords move. We're going to focus on the opening couple measures to Nica's Dream. I call it the Nica's Dream Vamp. It's the first 4 bars, or really 6 bars, of the form and the chord progression of Nica's Dream, but we can also extend it out and just do like an open vamp, an open intro for the tune, or an outro, or a drum solo. It can become kind of its own little form. It's a cool sound. It's the B flat minor major 7 to the A flat minor major 7. Okay, and today is all about how chords move, so we're just going to discuss some harmonic ideas that can work here. This is just building off what we did yesterday. Yesterday in lesson number 37, we were discussing how we can use triads to come up with nice phrases through that and to voice lead through it melodically. Today we're going to talk about how to do some basic shell voicing ideas, but to break away from the simplicity of just playing these 2 chords back and forth. Okay, especially if we turn this into a more open, extended vamp, where you might play on it for 2 or 3 minutes, and maybe you don't want to just play those 2 shell voicings back and forth. Paul, what's up, man? Good to see you. So, we're going to discuss just a bunch of different options without getting too complex. We're going to keep things really simple as far as shell voicings go. We're just going to talk about how chords move and how we can create some alternative pathways through this. So let me get a loop set up just with a bass line so that we can hear what a bass player would be playing, and then we can kind of tinker around with different options for how we can play on top of this. Alright, this is B flat, measure 2, A flat, 4, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So this is B flat minor major 7, A flat minor major 7. If you're like pretty new to jazz and don't know how to play these, just play a basic minor 7 shell voicing and move the middle note, the note on the 4th string, up 1 fret. Okay, so let's talk about, that's just kind of basic the way you would see it written out in the real book, but if you're just playing over the tune itself, that's fine, because you only get 2 chords and then you pretty much move on. B flat minor major, A flat minor major, B flat minor major, and then we're on to 2-5-1 into the key of D flat. But if you're actually vamping on it, if you're using this as like an intro, other than mixing up the rhythms, what are some other ideas for creating some freedom and some movement? So we're going to talk about a couple today, primarily based on inserting additional chords, like tension chords, and looking at how chords like to move. But before we get into those, I want to talk about a couple interesting ideas, which is not in the Chords for Life course, for those of you who have access to our membership area. This idea that I want to share will likely be in like a follow-up course. I'll probably make a Chords for Life part 2 where we go a little bit deeper into the potential of shell voicings. But we can create liquid harmony inside of shell voicings. Those of you who've been hanging with me for a while, you know the concept of liquid harmony, where we kind of have like a block of ice and we want to melt part of it down, not the whole thing, part of it down back into liquid form. So the block of ice is a chord voicing. It's like a chunk that we just read it off a book, off a page in a book, and we just kind of take this big clunky thing and play it, right? That's just the voicing. But we can create individual voice movement inside the full voicing. That's the concept of liquid harmony. So for shell voicings, we haven't really talked about this much, if at all, how to do this with shell voicings. We usually talk about it with our triad ideas, but we can do it within the shell voicing. So a really easy starting point for this is to think about the relationship between a minor 6 and a minor major 7. Okay, these two chords are very related, almost the same thing. Okay, they're like fraternal twins. Okay, so the chord is not moving, we're not using any kind of tension chord, we're just changing this one note. So we can actually comp with this to create a little bit of what feels like additional movement, something a little bit more complex, even though we're not really doing anything that out there. Check this out. You can do it in all kinds of different rhythms. Right, we can add a leading tone. Now I'm just doing it with the 3rd and the 7th. I'm not playing the root note because there's a bass player behind me. Can you hear the leading tone? Okay, it's still not overly complicated, but it gives us a little bit of movement. It gives our ear something a little more intriguing than just playing the same voicing, big clunky voicing, big clunky voicing. Let's look at one more way to take advantage of this idea. We're actually going to simplify it down, but it's going to create a really cool pedal effect. And then we'll talk about some different chords we could throw in that would actually change the chord progression. So if you notice, the minor 6 of this B flat chord is G, and the major 7 of the A flat is G. So these two chords, which are technically not really in the same mode or the same scale, have this note in common. So we can take advantage of that to create an interesting texture that you would not expect to hear if you were just playing two identical chords a whole step apart. We would expect to hear all of the notes moving up or down a whole step, and here we can create that while having this sort of backbone at the center, this like very grounded pedal. It's one of my favorite textures of music, when one note's staying put and other things are moving around it. Sometimes I'll try and palm mute that note to kind of, it reminds me of the sound of like a piano player. If you ever see them play like real rhythmic percussive stuff, they'll put their hand inside the pianos to dampen the string and mute it, and they'll play it almost like a percussionist. Sometimes you have to practice a little bit, but you can, if you're patient with it, you can learn to get the chord notes, the other notes, to kind of ring out a little bit while muting that one pedal tone. I just think that's a very cool texture to create. Just some ideas to play with based on, for lack of a better phrase, based on liquid harmony. This one is actually the kind of using liquid harmony to create the effect of not moving. In general, the idea of liquid harmony is to create the feeling of movement where there shouldn't be. Here we're taking advantage of a note that we know. That note, we know it works because of the liquid harmony idea. Now we're using it to create the sensation that something's static. Michael, can I please review the starting chord fingerings? I'm kind of using different fingerings depending on what I'm playing at any given moment. The notes are B flat 6th fret, A 7th fret, D flat 6th fret. Sometimes I play it with my thumb, middle, pointer. Sometimes I play it with my pointer here, index, ring, middle. Sometimes I play it middle, pinky, ring. It depends on what I'm doing. Like if I want to get this effect, then it's easier for me to have my index finger down here on the 4th string, 5th fret. So that way my pinky's available to me. If I play it like this, then I can't play that note without letting go. So it's all about the mechanics of making sure you can get all the notes you want possible. So you can play around with those 3 different fingering options. It's probably a good starting point. And then you can throw in those leading tones anywhere you want to. Right, if you read that off a transcription, it looks like I'm playing a minor 7 chord. If you're reading off a transcription, you're analyzing it, the sort of academic jazz college approach, you would just see that vertical structure of harmony and you would say, oh look, he's playing a minor 7 chord. I'm not playing a minor 7 chord. I'm playing a minor major 7 chord, but I'm using a leading tone in an internal voice of the chord. If you isolate that one sound, it's minor 7, but that one sound, there's a function to it. The function to the upper and lower note is that's the chord tones. Those are the chord tones that we're trying to hit to identify the chord, but the function of the middle note is different. I'm thinking of the middle note as its own separate voice, as liquid harmony, right? So this is the ice cube, and the note in the middle is the part that I've melted down back into water that's allowed to move around. And in this case, I'm just moving it with a basic leading tone. Can you hear that leading tone? So it's like a little internal melody inside the chord. Inner voice movement. Let's talk about some potential chordal ideas for how to free some of this stuff up so that we can not only get a single voice moving, a voice in the middle of the chord, but how do we actually just create unexpected harmonic ideas. It's not necessary that you do this. What is necessary is that you groove hard, like you can't get away with anything I'm going to show you in today's lesson if you don't make it just like crazy, like it should get people to want to get up and dance. It should make you want to dance. Like physically, you should feel it in your gut and in your bones that you want to move. If you don't feel that way, rhythmic feel, then everything else I'm going to talk about today is a waste of your time. You shouldn't be practicing it. You should put this video down and go turn on the metronome or a drum genius and just work on your feel and your expression of rhythm, because that's the master here. Everything else kind of follows suit to that. Okay? With that being said, if you're confident with your time and your feel, let's play around with some different types of chord movement. In our Chords for Life course inside our study group, we have 4 types of chord movement. We have dominant, diminished, chromatic, diatonic. These are like the most time-tested types of chord movement we can use. Okay, from Bach all the way up through Charlie Parker, all the way up to Kurt Rosenwinkel. Dominant, diminished, chromatic, diatonic. Let's look at a few of these and see how they might play out. Chromatic is the first one that jumps out to me as like worth looking at, because these 2 chords are the exact same. And one of the rules for chromatic movement is that whatever chord we want to target, however we want to get to, or whatever chord we want to get to, we want to mirror that quality as we move towards it. Meaning if I want to get to an A flat minor major, I want to approach it chromatically with minor major chords, as opposed to like major 7 chords or, half diminished chords. We want to take whatever that target chord is and just start playing it, but somewhere else, and then move chromatically towards it from above or below. Right there, it is an octave above. So because both chords are minor major 7, it's very easy to kind of snake our way up and down chromatically, because we're always going to be playing minor major 7. Or you can do this with minor 6. Like I showed you, minor 6 is a totally acceptable option for these also. I started on A, not on B flat. Did you catch that? Right, that's the simplest version of chromatic movement we can use. B flat down to A flat. We're not doing any fancy voicings right now. We can add fancier voicings on top of this once we understand how the chords move. Right now we're just looking at basic structures here. You gotta know where the downbeats are. Get a little wacky with it. I just ignored the B flat. I just started somewhere else and I just walked down and made sure I hit A flat on the right beat. Okay, you just gotta get goofy with this stuff. If you know your basic voicings, your shell voicings, and if you can feel the downbeats and if you can groove, then just sit for 5 or 10 minutes and just see how many different ways you can come up with this, targeting the different chords. Sometimes I'm going to target B flat, sometimes I'm going to ignore B flat and not play it, and I'm going to target A flat. Sometimes I'm going to target both and just kind of squiggle around them. And then, of course, don't overdo it when you're comping for a musician. If they're burning lines, you might want to get out of their way and give them room. But if there's a moment where there's like some empty space, you can come in and you can fill it up with this stuff. Just because we can do all this chromatic movement doesn't mean we should be doing it all the time. having a conversation with the soloist. You want to leave plenty of space for them. Okay? But it all depends on the situation. If you're playing in a guitar trio and you're just vamping on this progression to set up the melody for Nica's Dream, and there is no horn player or singer or piano player improvising on top of it, and it's just you, bass, and drums, you can kind of go wherever you want to go. You can play single notes, you can play moving harmony, you can do a little bit of both. You can combine them together. Back and forth. You can kind of comp for yourself a little bit this way. So that's some stuff you can think about for chromatic. How about dominant? Dominant's always worth checking out. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we still got a few minutes left. I'll start to wrap up here with dominant. Maybe we'll ignore diminished and diatonic. Dominant says that we can always approach a chord from its 5 or from the tritone. Okay? Tritone is a half step above, but it's not chromatic. Half step above, which is a chromatic half step, but it's a dominant chord resolving to a minor major. Remember I said with chromatic it implies that we're using the same chord quality, the same chord type as our target. Here we're not. Here we're switching chord quality from dominant to minor major. So you could do like a B7 to B flat minor major 7. And then A7 to A flat minor major 7. And if you're anything like me, you might have noticed pretty quickly that there's a pedal tone between these two chords. Start on the tension chord and resolve, or you can start on the target chord, move away from it, and come back. Right, very unexpected to hear that flat 2 in the bass movement. It's not in the scale, that's not diatonic, it's not in this palette, but it still works because it's a tension chord. We could also do the 5 chord. This is the flat 2 dominant, the tritone. 1 5 1 5 1 5. Right, B flat up to F7. A flat up to E flat 7. Combining a few of the different ideas we've talked about so far. We can add the 2 chord before any dominant. Right, so like if we're headed to the A flat minor major, we know that E flat will take us to it. And what's the 2 chord that comes before an E flat dominant? It's B flat minor 7. Okay, now we're getting away from this modal sound and we're employing functional movement, functional harmony. What's interesting here is that we're supposed to be playing a B flat minor major 7, but we can turn it into a B flat minor 7 because we know that that B flat minor will either want to go to E flat 7 or A7 and will resolve us to our A flat minor. catch it? B flat minor major 7, B flat minor 7, A7, A flat minor major 7. Can you hear it? B flat minor major, B flat minor 7, A7, A flat minor major. That time I just ignored the B flat minor major 7. Okay, this is not going to be in the real book. But you can see functionally why it works, yeah? If we keep walking down the bass note chromatically from the A flat, we find ourselves in an F7. Where does F7 want to go? Back to B flat. F7 dominant takes us back to B flat. Every time I'm skipping over the B flat minor major 7, which is like kind of the home bass chord. That's the starting chord, and I'm intentionally leaving it out and playing a minor 7 instead. So I can, to try and help you see how much freedom there actually is in these two chords. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm never playing the B flat minor major 7. Okay? Why? Because I'm using functional chord movement to replace it. These are not chord substitutions. I'm just thinking about specific target points I want to head to and using types of chord movement that I know will take me there. Again, this is all the stuff that we delve deep into in Chords for Life. Dominant, diminished, chromatic, diatonic. For the most part in standard jazz guitar education, the only real things we look at and like are encouraged to practice are drop voicings, right? Like memorizing your inversions of the drop voicings. So far I haven't talked about any inversions here. We could turn these into inversions if we want to, but it's not really that necessary to create movement. We're told to practice our drop voicings, drop 2 and drop 3, and then we're told to practice chord scale stuff, which is diatonic movement. Diatonic movement is cool, it's helpful, but it's a lot of practice, and it honestly, I think it's the least amount of payoff for the most amount of investment. Every day, man, the jazz police, they keep calling them on me. As soon as I start talking about pianistic ideas and getting away from guitar education. Diatonic movement's cool, right? But I think it takes the most amount of work up front, the biggest practice investment to pay off the least in the way I like to play versus something like seeing 5-1, right? Like being able to understand how dominants move from 5-1 or the flat 2-1, the tritone, or chromatic or diminished. I think those are much easier and simpler to learn to see because it's just tiny little movements that you can apply everywhere you want to go versus diatonic where it's all about moving, you know, memorizing every key is different, it's going to look a little bit different on the fretboard, but dominant movement, once you see it, those two chords moving, it's always the same no matter what key you're in. So play around with the liquid harmony, the shell voicing liquid harmony. Right? Play around with moving with chromatic movement. If you need to start with B flat, A flat, it's okay to start there, but that's like day one beginner level exploration for chromatic. It's a little too obvious and you're going to get stuck there if you never force yourself out of it. So move in unexpected ways. See what happens if you just move up a half step. Like try going up to B natural over the B flat. Move away from the target chord and then see if you can get back to it in the right rhythmic feel in the right time. Right, just snake through it and see what you can come up with, and maybe record yourself doing it and then try improvising over it so you can get a feel for what it would be like for the soloist. Because this can be a lot of fun, but it's also a little dangerous because if you're doing it from a very egoic place of trying to show off and fill up too much space and you're not paying attention, you can piss off a lot of soloists. They don't really want so much happening behind them that they can't feel where they are, but they also don't want to be bored, right? The average soloist, if they're a good soloist, wants to feel something like exciting to stand on top of, but they want to be able to stand. They don't want to feel like they're drowning in like insanity. So record yourself and try playing over it. That'll give you a feel of what it would be like for a soloist if you were comping that way for them. And you have to find your own balance. Your balance, my balance, everyone else's balance is going to be a little different. Some people prefer a lot of static ideas that aren't moving, and some people prefer a lot of movement, and some people prefer a lot of empty space with not a lot of chords. So you kind of have to find what works for you. So try the liquid harmony stuff, try the chromatic stuff, try the dominant stuff, and I think we're going to leave it at that today. Tomorrow we'll be back for our advanced melodic triad concepts. We'll probably tie together Nica's Dream, this Vamp, with some of our single note ideas, I think, but maybe beef it up and get into something more advanced, maybe our pentatonic scale, maybe our 6-note bebop scale. I'm not sure yet, but we'll do something fun with it to improvise in a little bit more of an advanced way versus what we did yesterday, which was about as simple as we can get with melodic triads for improvisation. Hit me with questions in the comments if you got them. If you're not in a study group and you like these lessons, but you feel like they're just too all over the place and you're looking for a very systematic path, a step-by-step practical way to internalize using triads for improvisation and learning to control harmonic movement, check out our website, check out the study group, hit me up if you need anything, and until tomorrow, happy practicing. Hey YouTube, it's Jordan Clemens with NYC Jazz Guitar Master Classes and the Melodic Triads Study Group. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have a ton of content coming out on YouTube this year. We've been doing daily jazz guitar lessons, so I'm going to be posting videos like this pretty much every day. So if you dug this and you want to follow me, subscribe and make sure that you turn on notifications so that you can watch more videos like this. Thanks again for watching. Hope to see you in the comment section. Hope to see you in the next video.